this situation may not be too bad because they retreated before combat. So in my exploitation phase, I can move units into there, and then in there, they either have to move out, or if they remain there in their turn, they will have to fight me, and that will be at 1-to-1 odds, which is bad for them. So I think at the end of the turn we will have that airfield, but not at this point. Whereas I'm hoping to land. Oh no, that's right. Yeah, I'm landing float planes at the port there, so that's fine. We're doing fine up there. So it's gone good. We've got Narvik and Trondheim, which is fantastic. And we got fairly strong units there. We do, though, need some air base down here so that we can reinforce them with troops in the next turn. I'm about to start the third turn of the game of Narvik. Victory points are standing at 25 to the Norwegian Allied. There's a mixed pile of losses from both sides. This was a loss of a unit that mobilised at this centre, captured by the Germans, and so was immediately lost. As it stands now, the Germans are in a bit of a dire situation. They do not as yet have an airbase in Norway, which they desperately need to bring in more forces. You can see the Norwegians are holding around Oslo here. This is an Allied unit, so the Allies, that's at the moment it's just British, but this turn some French are going to come in. And on the 7th turn there will be some Polish, but they've been bringing in units, so they can just bring their units to any port outside of this region. So the Allies are holding this. That's a German unit. You can see it's surrounded. So the Germans are going to have to heavily reinforce here and come round, take these airfields, and really they want to take out these airfields as well. There's 1, 2, 3 at this part, so that the British don't have air bases. But you can see the British, they've got air units here, and they're interdicting there. So the Germans, really, they've just got kind of a landing zone here. They are contesting Trondheim here, and here they're essentially, they've been disrupted last turn, and they've got supplies and that, but they've run to the mountains around Narvik there. You can see the Allies are bringing troops in. The Allies have an aircraft carrier here, Furious, which I think it was their units which disrupted that one, but that one is recalled in this turn. They can fly interception missions in the German turn, but I don't think that any aircraft are going to get up there, because there's some bombers that can make it up there on extended range, but then they won't have any airfield to get back to, so they would crash. So the Germans need to hold this area, so that Narvik is key, but that means then that Trondheim is key, because there's an airfield there and they need that airfield to be able to bring forces up there. They can't bring forces up there by sea, nor really up there by sea very effectively at all. They're going to lose at least half of them en route. So Trondheim is looking to be key to the whole campaign, in the sense that they can get Oslo sooner or later and the airfield's there, but then they need to set a staging field there so that then they can get Narvik, because they need to hold that point and all of this to win the game decisively. At least one of those to have any chance of a win. So Trondheim here in the middle is going to prove key, because this is, I think, is just a matter of time. But you know, obviously, the more time that Norwegians and Allies can tie the Germans down here, the less time they have to supplies to get Trondheim, less chance they have to get a sizable force there to keep the Norwegians and the Allies out. So the Germans still have 3 and a bit divisions undeployed here, and they've got 2 more divisions coming on this turn. So you can see the units are not entering as quick as they might. They've got these are coming in, so that's 2, regiments and a battalion of artillery coming in by sea, and they will just be coming in here to be relatively safe. So they need to get up there, essentially. Some of them are coming in to reinforce the division this unit belongs to help take the peninsula, but the rest going up there to help with the taking of Trondheim. So the Germans need that airfield because they've got loads of aircraft, but these aircraft don't have so much range. The bombers could just about assist in bombing there before they have to go back to Germany, and at double range they could maybe assist in bombing around here, but that's a third effectiveness because they need all the weight for their fuel, so they need these airfields to bring their aeroplanes on. And then apart from that, they've got, like, here's a stack of these aeroplanes that want to carry these units over, but they haven't got an airfield to land them on. As soon as we've got airfields to land, we can be piling in troops, and that's how these divisions will get in. I did consider building this once-off option of a 3-squadron lake landing field, but so I thought maybe I'd put it somewhere like here, but it takes one hit, so one hit from Allied bombers and it's gone for the whole rest of the game. So that's just a one-shot thing. I think I'd save that for a sort of dire emergency. Now, so all of the Allied and Norwegian initial units are on. Turn 3, they've got more coming on. Here's the French, the lighter greys. They've got some supplies coming on as well. That is key because then they'll be able to attack. At the moment, they're just able to defend. But bringing their supplies on means that they can actually start attacking. And you see, so the Furious is going to withdraw with these, and we got Bomber Command. These planes are actually still in Bomber Command. I just adjusted them. I just added a C there, sort of drying out because I had to use a pen. To remind me that those units can come back, so they're kind of expendable. So they've actually flown to Bomber Command into this airport there. They might get intercepted and or bombed out by the Germans, but they're there creating a presence. Essentially, really, it would probably be better. Hopefully they will stay there one turn, and then they can stage up to a further airfield there, or even up to there. So that's the situation at the start of turn 3. Germans have essentially got to take some airfields, which essentially at the moment can only really be around Oslo, and then they need to start moving out into the peninsula to start taking the ports so that the Allied forces cannot come steaming in. The Allies just have to counteract that. They're not going to be able to defend this much longer. In fact, it might have been wise for them to withdraw last turn, but they didn't want to give them to the Germans for free. You see on the combat results table, on 1-to-1 odds, the best you can get is a half exchange, no effect, and then these are attacker effects. On 3-to-1 odds, you could still have no effect and a half exchange, but then you actually start doing damage to the defending unit. 2-to-1 odds is not so good, so it's that classic, you need at least 3-to-1 odds, which they're going to have against these defenders. Okay. So that's the end of turn 3. The Norwegians lost 2 units, one of them a mountain unit. The Germans lost a couple of an air unit and a battalion, and the British lost 3 air squadrons. So that's quite a lot of losses for the Norwegians Allies, which brings the victory point total to 29. Now the Germans got everything they wanted around Oslo. They have an airfield here, they have this airfield here. You can see some of the Norwegians managed to retreat out. and the Norwegians are bringing motorised units down here, so they're going to try and hold these passes here. They've got a mountain unit here. These are kind of like hollow headquarters units with next to nothing in them. And these are just trucks, so they're moving up here, ready to move out. So they're allowing the Allies to build up here, which is what's happening. So the Allies have brought in a division here. They retreated back here, but they've managed to hold the perimeter here. So there was some German gains here, and the Norwegians knocked out a unit there. So essentially the British are going to be contesting around here. They're a bit nervous for their air bases. They had thought maybe we will pull out and land our aeroplanes further up. But the French have landed a division here, and the Norwegians are quite strong, not strong enough really to attack the mountain units in the mountains there, but confident enough to send, as I said, their motorised units down this way to hold off the German build-up from penetrating there. So the hope is that this bottleneck here will keep the Germans in this area, and then they will be squeezed by the British from here, and the French will hold this pass. Then slowly via mobilisation, and there's an anti-aircraft unit coming up here. Like one unit mobilised here for the Norwegians. They hope to build up enough to take them out, because they're just kind of sitting there at the moment. Same here, that's Germans and Germans. They had another unit of reinforcement here. We're hoping for more mobilisation. So there's support by sea interdiction, and actually I'm going to move this interdiction marker over to here, because it's more likely the Germans will try and bring in troops around here. So yeah, again, just hoping to contain these until we've built up enough to fight them out of the mountains. So that's the situation at the end. The Germans are happy. They have 2 airfields, so now they can start bringing in loads more reinforcements and planes. The British are kind of not happy. They're going to be taking a beating, especially their planes with all the German planes coming in. It's just a question of are the Germans going to bring in fighters or transports first, or bombers. So I'm not sure how long the British will hold that area for. It's only the 4th turn out of 15, so they would like to sort of bother the Germans for 2 or 3 turns really to feel they've been effective there. Otherwise they have to withdraw up here, and what are they going to do? They would just be sitting there waiting for the Germans to build up. So really they're going to try and keep Germans off these 3 airfields. The Germans are quite happy, and the Allies are sort of fairly satisfied with their efforts so far too. Germans are especially happy because they now get 14 battalions worth staging each turn up to the end of the game now, so that they will be bringing on more units by sea as well. Probably the bulk of these will still be here. We might see some attempted, maybe opposed landings around there, but definitely not further than that. It's too risky. So that's it so far. Just a end note is that this is the Europa series Narvik. So it uses the normal Europa rules. You've got 16 mile hexes, the same sequence of play, etc. I think it's a little bit simplified here because that doesn't need the naval and the air so much. I mean, the ships are kind of quite abstracted. There's no ship combat. I don't know about the other Europa series. So it's all sort of very similar to Europa, except one thing I've noticed from reading up a bit about the Europa series now is that there's no zone of controls in the Narvik game. There are in normal Europa, so that would make a difference. Another thing is I think that the units, we even have like company size units in this game. Often they're only going to be sort of division, maybe down to battalion units. So that's divisional headquarters. Here's a regiment, division, maybe battalion, but no lower. So we've got a bit of a smaller breakdown of units here. So it'd be interesting after Narvik. I'm definitely going to try another Europa title sooner or later because I like the system. I understand it will get a lot more complex when you're bringing in more armour and that kind of thing. But I don't know. The Europa games, the sort of the major Europa games, like in the Eastern Theatre, Second Front. I think that's the invasion of France. That's very expensive to buy. I don't think there's any in print at the moment, and so they're sort of upwards of 200, upwards of 100, 150, 200 euros for the big games. There are smaller games like the Balkans. Winter War, and one or two others, but I don't know if they'll give. I'd like to try something, give more breadth of the Europa system. I have their finest hour, which is Operation Sea Lion and the Battle of Britain. So I guess I will have to try that next. But again, I don't think it's going to be sort of an atypical Europa game. But so far, I really like the system, and I think this is an excellent game. A quick update here on Narvik. I have reached turn number 9, and you can see we've gone through all these turns. What's happened? Well, the Germans have their two. I can't remember what my last update was. They have 2 airfields here. I'm sorry it's so dark. I'm filming this at night. My lighting's not so great. This place. Let's see. That helps a bit, doesn't it? Yeah, so they've basically got a line coming forward here, but then the Brits and the Norwegians will hold them off. So the Norwegians still hold all around here. Germans coming up here, and they've had to move out down to here. They lost a unit, so the other one's scarpered from Trondheim. Up here, what happened was there's a lot of reinforcements building up there, so they're getting quite worried, and they built a lake airfield here, and in that turn they landed at that unit there, which isn't even mountain, because there wasn't a mountain unit sort of available near airfields down here. It came up all the way from here, because to get that far the transports could not fly back, so they had to land here, and that turn 8, the Ark Royal came in, bombed that airfield. 2 of the transport squadrons managed to get back. 1 was destroyed, but they did get those reinforcements in. So they're just hiding up there at the moment. Yeah, so all of the initial, I sort of rationalised this a bit, because most of the, these are the only reinforcements left for the Allies, and these are possible mobilisations for the Norwegians. The Germans have 1, 2, 3 more divisions to bring on, all their initial divisions on, and you can see they've got their headquarters are building up quite nicely here. The same for the Norwegians, their headquarters are building up, and every British headquarter is essentially a regiment. They're not divisional headquarters. I mean, they are divisional, but what was it? Yeah, but they're not as big as the German ones. Yeah, so the Germans at the moment, they can bring on essentially a division each turn by boat, and they're not doing too badly. But I think for the overall picture, I'm not really fancying the German chances because they need to have someone up in Narvik near enough to it to threaten it at the end, and they need to clear out to take all the ports here except for these two kind of like offshore ports. So Trondheim is the key for it. So like Narvik is essential to the game because the Germans have a fair chance of getting there. That takes 100 victory points from the Brits, but the Norwegian Allied, they have 30 victory points at the moment as it's going. That's just from unit losses. So say if the Allies keep Narvik and they have those 30 points, that gives us 130 points, which is a marginal Allied victory. If the Allies lose Narvik, which is worth 100 points, and they just sort of, they don't do more than 50 points losses. I mean, the Germans don't lose many more units. That would be a decisive German victory. Probably the Germans are going to lose some more units because some they just lose transporting them over. So the Germans are looking at marginal German victory just on unit losses. Having taken or being near Narvik and having all these places, and Trondheim features in both those places because Trondheim has to be taken for them to deny the Norwegian player the victory points for this area, and then Trondheim is essential for staging and defending Narvik up there. And I don't know, there's quite strong defensive forces, although these ones have spent their supply, so they can only defend now. The French have got some supply here. They could try another attack. They did one attack. They spent one supply. They've now got two headquarters in there. It's going to be tough to push them out and get into the ports. So I think that the Germans, that they may be able to take the peninsula here with a main effort in those next last 7 turns. But I don't know if they'll be able to have enough effort to support that up at Narvik. This is the start of the 12th turn of a 15-turn game of Narvik, and late last night I called the game. I reasoned the Germans just have no way of winning it, and it ends in a decisive Allied victory. The reasons for calling it are essentially that although the Germans, they built up nicely around Oslo, they just didn't have enough time to take here, 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 and here. They're on their way. They've got heavy forces moving up these two valleys here, including 2 mountain troops. Mountain divisions. They've got 2 divisions moving up here, and they've got 2 or 3 divisions moving up here. But in each case, they're opposed by 1 Allied regiment and assorted assets and Norwegian troops. It was just too much of too slow a build up, and they. With the combat table being what it is, you can push units back. It's rare that they get eliminated. There's a 50% chance of eliminating the defender on 6-1 odds, but it's going to be a lot to get that big odds. So essentially what lost it for them is that they did not get airfields quick enough. If they had airfields quicker, they could be moving all these air units over into Norway, which will help them with bombing out the Allied supply bases and causing disruptions on their units, enabling it easier destruction of them. So they just couldn't take the peninsula in the time given, which gives 100 victory points to the Allies straight away. And then similarly up in Narvik, they were just pressed so hard that they managed to hold on with 3 battalions and a regiment of troops up there, but they just were holed up in the mountains with no hope of getting close enough to Narvik to contest another 100 victory points for the Allied Norwegian forces there. If they had been able to contest Narvik, or if they had taken the peninsula, then it could well have been a marginal German victory if they had also had time to inflict enough losses, for example, on more air units or on shipping, which they could only have done if they had had more aeroplanes in Norway close enough to be able to perform those missions. So it basically fell down to the fact that I did not move fast enough for the Germans to take these outlying airfields. There's 3 there. They had eventually got the 2 in Oslo about on the 6th turn, I think. They needed more because they've got many squadrons available, but 2 air bases could only carry 6 at a time. And perhaps I made a mistake of using those air bases once they had them for transportation, when I should have been using them for fighters and bombers. So I have to take the game down anyway. I have a guest coming to use the room, so it was a good time to take it down. I was hoping to sort of finish it last night. I just realised it was getting late, I was getting tired, and then I just realised the Germans cannot make it. So reflecting on strategy, my original strategy had been to keep a presence in Narvik, build up here, keep a presence in Trondheim, and then work up to Trondheim to take Trondheim and then take the rest of the peninsula. Now, I think that was faulty. Trondheim is key because you have to take Trondheim to be able to control the peninsula as well as these other ports. And it's also the key for being able to supply and effectively support any objectives in campaigning around Narvik. So Trondheim is the key position in the middle of Norway. You need it for both weights of victory points. But my mistake was to sort of concentrate on going for that. I should have taken out the closer areas with their air bases first. Then that would possibly give me enough time and weight to bring to bear on Narvik to clinch the peninsula. And then if I still had time and I could keep forces up there, I think it's quite feasible. If you have mountain troops off the mountains, they're very difficult to dislodge. Then if I had time to stage further forces up there and contest Narvik. So overall it's a very good game. It's like, so the victory conditions make a lot of sense because if the Allies, Norwegians, hold here, then obviously Germany doesn't have a toehold. But if Germany takes that and the Allies have Narvik uncontested, it tells us that at the end of the campaign they still have a base far enough away from the rest of Norway to build up forces and then threaten, come down and threaten the rest of Norway. So the victory conditions make a lot of sense. But it's difficult. I think it's quite a tall order for the Germans. And I realised going in that this was a game about planning, and that's what makes a game so interesting, is planning your. It's mechanically it's not such a chore because there's not so many units. So, and many units are off map on the holding boxes, so you're just moving their headquarters around. So mechanically you don't have a lot of moving to do like that, plus the fact that many of the routes are channeled through these valleys, with really only the mountain units sort of, free to move amongst the mountains. There's only so many routes you can do, so you're not sort of scratching your head trying to work out, flanking manoeuvres and things like that. You just say, right, I'm going down that valley, or that valley, and with what forces. So mechanically and sort of on map, you're not spending a lot of time and effort doing that, but the time and effort and the major enjoyment is in that planning and organising your air, your sea transportation, and your land manoeuvres. And for the Brits, it's not just sea transportation, but sea support and air from the sea as well. So I would like to play again and take a bit more care with the German initial invasion. Essentially, they can get 2 divisions on in the first turn. Then in turn 2 and 3, they can get another division on, half each turn. And then after that, each turn they get another division on by boat. Now they're going to lose some of those, which is VP losses in transit, but their build-up is assured. If you look at it like that, a division a turn is a lot. So they need to be active, and I didn't have them active. I had them sort of steadily building up. We were, admittedly, the Norwegians had a lot around here, which we had to move through. But I think if I'd been more careful with, instead of sort of bringing on bits of divisions, bringing on a whole division at a time, you have a very big sort of killer force to move around. Even though I say that, for example, we had last turn attack from 2 divisions, 2 mountain divisions, no less. One of them full, one more or less full, against a French mountain regiment. And it was inconclusive. So, even with good odds, I can't remember exactly what the odds were. I think it was 4-1. There was still a 1 in 6 chance with no effects. And 5-1, there's still a 1 in 6 chance. Even on 6-1, it's a 1 in 6 chance of no effect. So you don't have that kind of certainty of steamrolling just because you've got big forces. So, yeah, I don't know. It bears more playing.